Welcome to another episode of The Dissection. Is a cabinet reshuffle looming? Is the Democratic Alliance Party going to leave or be pushed out? A big question that needs to be answered or considered is this. Despite the rhetoric from the ANC and ministers within the ANC, despite the budget vote, the legislation, despite the animosity that seems to be evident between the Democratic Alliance and the ANC, why would the Democratic Alliance maintain an interest in staying in the government of national unity? That's what we're going to be talking about today. As things stand, it's reasonable to wonder why the DA would maintain an interest in staying in the coalition. The ANC has sidelined them on various issues, including the following major areas of disagreement. We saw Basic Education Laws Amendment Act. They were on different sides of the issue. We saw there was a delay, the eventual full enactment, lots of dispute, lots of controversy. National Health Insurance Act. The Democratic Alliance opposes this. They want private medical aid. They do not support the National Health Insurance Act in its current form. It's been passed. The Expropriation Act passed. DA opposes it. They're going to court fighting this. The Value Added Tax Act. The Democratic Alliance is taking that to court. They're taking the vote for the fiscal framework to court. They're challenging the authority of the Minister of Finance to be able to raise value-added tax without the input or approval of Parliament. They're challenging the way that the vote went down within the Standing Committee on Finance, and they're saying that there were irregularities there. So 2 court cases going on currently where the Democratic Alliance, which sits in the government of national unity in the Grand Coalition, is taking their rival entity or taking the government that they are part of to the courts. So they're operating as an opposition within the coalition. So if all of these things are playing out, you didn't vote for the budget, you disagree with the direction, you disagree with fundamental issues, why stay? Why stay? Potentially, they're going to be on the wrong side of the equation when it comes to the following bills: the Division of Revenue Bill, the Appropriation Bill. It seems, from the rhetoric of the Deputy President and the Minister of Finance, that there is an appetite for them to leave the government of national unity in some parts of the ANC. We've seen multiple pieces of rhetoric indicating that. Even Gayton McKenzie, who's a minister in the cabinet, has been publicly calling for them to leave, saying, resign, exit, hamba, abahambe. Gayton, it's like he only knows one word of Zulu and it's abahambe, because everything is abahambe. What's the weather, mayihambe? What's the... I'm just playing. He probably knows a little bit more Zulu than that. Abahambe and something else perhaps. We'll see. One day I'll speak to him. Maybe I'll see his Zulu knowledge. So it's clear that they're not welcome right now within many parts of the ANC. Fikile Mbalula used softer language, but you could tell that there's definite tension and a definite appetite for them to be pushed out. Why do they want to stay? Why do they Why do they not want to leave? You know, we saw some rhetoric coming from the former mayor of Tshwane, Silius Brink, in a poor worded tweet where he called members of the GNU fools on Twitter. The Democratic Alliance, as things stand, seems to have a membership and a leadership that is frustrated, right? And former mayor of Tshwane, Silius Brink, was pushed out because the ANC worked with Action SA and other smaller parties to vote him out. But they are holding fort. We saw John Steenhuisen talking about how they are committed to the government of national unity. They want to stay in the government of national unity. So why do they like taking a lashing? Why are they staying? Why are they staying? Let's do a chessboard analysis of the game theory behind why the Democratic Alliance is staying. And I think it will be pretty evident by the end of this video why they want to stay. Number 1, campaign strategy. As things stand, despite the noise and the commotion, for electoral purposes and for the upcoming campaigns, elections in 2026, local government elections, and national elections in 2029, the Democratic Alliance is actually in a good spot. They've differentiated themselves from the ANC in the coalition itself, which is always a big challenge. You know, in a coalition, you can get painted with the same brush. You all become ministers of the government. But the Democratic Alliance has been able to get distinction and differentiation from the ANC ministers. There is this rhetoric of ANC ministers DA ministers. People do make those distinctions. People are happy with some of the work that is being done by some of the ministers. And in that respect, they get brownie points and high visibility, high media opportunities from being in cabinet. But they've then also avoided any responsibility for a very unpopular tax increase. And as a bonus, they're going to be able to blame two rival political parties, Action SA and Build One South Africa, for helping support, and also Rise Mzansi for the tax increase. So it's best of both worlds. You get good media coverage, good publicity for your cabinet positions. You get to oppose the ANC when they do things, accuse them of corruption, and blame your political rivals for the unpopular tax increase. That's something that they're going to stay in. It's a good spot electorally. It's good to stay, even though inside the coalition, people are giving you bombastic side eyes, criminal side eye, and all of those other types of side eyes. If looks could kill, Abakambe would have killed them multiple times by now. So it's notable to see that people like Leon Schreiber, the Minister of Home Affairs, is getting positive reviews. Going into local government elections, they're in a good position to pick up some votes. They can fight for votes in Tshwane, saying that Action SA and ANC betrayed the voters of Tshwane. They can fight in local government against Panyaza, against Dada Morero in Johannesburg. They can make the argument that if you look at people like Mayor Papas, Christopher Papas, he's doing well. They're doing well in the Western Cape. Those type of arguments can resonate, particularly when people are not experiencing good service delivery. So when it comes to campaign strategy, it's very effective for them to remain within the government of national unity till the wheels come off, basically, or till they're kicked out. And then if they're kicked out, they can then blame Paul Mashatile. They can blame anybody who's in the prominent leadership of the group that kicks them out, and then use that also for campaigning. So they're going to stay in because it's good campaign strategy. Number two, they can go slow on the policies that they oppose. The Democratic Alliance has the capacity to influence the implementation of some of the policies that they oppose right now. For example, with the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act and the Expropriation Act, their ministers actually sit and administer those particular acts. The Minister of Basic Education, Siviwe Kharube, has already been working with Solidarity. She tried to really dilute the bill. It was a bone of contention, and she said she'll implement it. But as the minister, you can implement a go slow on stuff that you say is not a priority. You can say, well, yeah, we're going to implement it, but I've got these other 6 priorities. I need you guys to focus your work on this. With limited resources, with limited talent, with limited managerial pool, you can actually implement a go slow on things that you don't like when you occupy a position of minister. The same applies to Expropriation Act. Dean McPherson is the Minister of Public Works. He's the guy who's supposed to be administering the Expropriation Act. He's already expressed his opposition to it. He's already expressed that he doesn't like it. Having him in key position there is something that the Democratic Alliance will think is valuable, something that their voters think is valuable. So that's another reason to stay. The third one, donors want them to stay. And the Democratic Alliance wants to maintain those donor relationships to be able to raise funds for the 2026 elections and the 2029 elections. Elections are very expensive and competition is tight. So you have to manage your donors, manage your stakeholders, and the donor relationship is one of the critical donor relationships. Think about this. The Capitec co-founder, Michel Leroux, gave the Democratic Alliance over 115 million rands in the last 3 years. His bank gained market cap significantly last year after the GNU came into place, right? They had an increase in market cap of 56 billion after the coalition was announced. FNB also benefited, Standard Bank benefited. FNB got a market cap increase of 60 billion, 48 billion for Standard Bank. Nedbank got 6.7 billion, ABSA 9.7 billion. What I'm trying to put across is that the markets, the donors, the elites, the billionaires who really are the few families who contribute to the South African political landscape in terms of funding political parties, they had interest in making sure that coalition came in, that it was a market-friendly coalition, and their companies gained in market capitalization, tens of billions, much more than what they contributed. If you think about it, let me tell you some of the numbers. The Oppenheimer family, as a whole family, and they're the sisters, the brothers, etc., etc. They don't necessarily donate at the same time or to the same people, but it's mostly to the same people. The Oppenheimer family spent over 185 million rands. 185 million rands in the last 3 years. And a lot of their contributions went to the members of the coalition, the Moonshot guys, as well as the DA, the IFP, current members of the coalition. 3 individuals or families contributed 375 million, 65.6% of all the money that was contributed to political parties came from 3 individuals or families in the last 3 years. The Oppenheimer family, 185 million, over 185 million. Michel Leroux, the Capitec co-founder, 115 million, over 115 million, just over. Martin Moshal, 73 million. That's significant. And you could tell that some of the donations were being made for strategic reasons. For example, just before the elections in April and in May, Nikki Oppenheimer and Jonathan Oppenheimer gave the Inkatha Freedom Party 30 million in April of 2024, 20 million in May of 2024. Why? Why do they give them those amounts of money? Because it was hot in KwaZulu-Natal. They gave them 50 million, period of 2 months, for a last push because they needed the IFP to get enough votes to be able to close out the MK party. Otherwise, the MK party was going to win outright in KwaZulu-Natal. So big money goes in big places in big ways for big reasons. And they gave their money significantly to the Democratic Alliance, to the IFP. So when you know that the donors gave you that amount of money, we're talking about large amounts of money, right? 3 families giving 375 million in 3 years, right? Almost 120 million per year to political parties, just a few political parties. As one of those political parties, you are going to keep that in mind, particularly because you have other races coming up and the electoral environment is dynamic and challenging and tough. So donor relationships, that's one of the reasons. We've seen markets saying, no, we need you to stay. We saw business leaders saying, we need you to stay. We need you to stay. They were saying stay more than Rihanna was saying stay in that song that she sang. I want you to stay in the GNU. I cannot sing like Rihanna, my sweetheart, right? So that's the reality. Number four, there are still other fights that the Democratic Alliance is heavily involved in. For example, the Minister of Communications we saw withdrew the SABC bill last year, and this was a major issue of contention between him, Solly Malatsi, and the African National Congress. Recently, Kusela Diko has been doing interviews saying that the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies is proposing deviations to local equity laws to appease foreign businesses looking to work in the country. Kusela Diko has accused the minister of being legally delinquent. He has been accused of issuing policy directives that are unlawful. So what is this all about? This is the issue which was linked to Starlink. Remember the Starlink controversy? Elon Musk saying South Africa is preventing me from operating my business because I'm not black. Here's a quick recap if you want to understand everything around the Elon Musk and the Starlink issue, which Kusela Diko is now saying that Solly Malatsi is trying to help Elon Musk through the angles, through the side doors. Firstly, the relevant legislation you need to be aware of is the Electronic Communications Act. The regulatory body that is responsible for all of this stuff is the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, ICASA, and they're in charge of issuing licenses and all of that. On the 31st of March in 2021, ICASA issued new regulations in respect of the limitations of control and equity ownership by historically disadvantaged groups and application of the ICT sector code. What they then did is change the requirements to this. Individual licensees and larger network operators and providers would have to comply with the following rules. Number 1, 30% ownership by persons from historically disadvantaged groups, and also achievement of level 4 triple BEE status as assessed under the ICT sector code. companies can achieve a level 4 BE status by accumulating required points across the 5 broad-based Black economic empowerment elements: ownership, management control, skills and development, enterprise and supplier development, and socio-economic development. So this is what Elon Musk would have had to meet the requirements thereof. And he was like, I'm not doing all of that. I just want to bring Starlink in. I just want to sell you guys satellites. I just want to be able to be a network provider here, provide you this internet connectivity. I don't want to restructure my company, even make a South African entity, even though he does have a South African entity that's registered. Typically what happens, Vodacom did it, a few other companies did it. You have the international company, which owns a large amount of the shares. Then you make a local entity. That local entity then has 30% local ownership and 70% owned by Starlink. And that collective entity doesn't have to own even 0.5% of Starlink International. It's just something that allows you to operate and gives those particular groups, a share of the profits in that particular country, which also makes sense, because why would you give away your ICT sector to a foreign-owned company without making sure you take care of the local industries, have skills transfers, all of that kind of thing? So Elon Musk had claimed that Starlink had been prevented from operating in South Africa because he's not Black. And that was the whole debate, right? Starlink applied for a license. They withdrew from that process. And Elon was, tweeting at President Ramaphosa, claiming that South Africa has openly racist laws. Now, what Soli is being accused of is trying to find accommodations for Elon Musk through a deviation. He has denied all of the allegations that have been made by Khusela Tiko, for the record, and I think it's important for us to put that across. But she's saying that he's trying to make deviations so that Starlink can operate without a license. As you can see, this is a big ministry and these are significant fights. The DA is not going to be interested in walking away from that cabinet position at this time. It's a vital portfolio. So even if there's a lot of bitter medicine you have to take, even if there's a lot of raw spinach and kale that you have to drink in a smoothie as a result of the cadres, the Democratic Alliance is thinking, you know what, smoothies are good for my gut health at this particular moment. If I get to stay in this particular coalition, that is the reason I'm going to stay. So the DA has good reasons to stay, and they want to leave at the right time for them. What's that right time? I believe that the DA is going to hold on until after the ANC elective conference, when there is a change of leadership of the ANC. Whoever emerges, whether it's Ronald Lamula, Fikile Mbalula, Mashatile, Panyaza, whoever, Ramokgopa, it doesn't matter who emerges. They're going to say they have no confidence in that person. And typically what will happen is that scandals will start being reported by News 24, lots of coverage of that person, all of the skeletons come out. Then the DA will say, oh, we can't be in coalition with this person. We're walking away. The DA is not going to walk away before that, right? The ANC conference is in December of 2027. And I think that at some time in 2028, the Democratic Alliance will walk away. They'll probably walk away after or around the budget issue, right? So think about it like this. 2027, the ANC has voted for Panyaza Lesufi, right? At some point, President Ramaphosa will be asked to step down, and that will be likely before the State of the Nation address, before the budget is presented, right? Meaning that there could even be a new Minister of Finance presenting that particular budget. Not likely, but that's what's going to happen, right? They probably won't do a cabinet reshuffle. At that point, as the budget fight is coming up, we've already seen how messy a budget fight is coming up. The DA will then say, woo, we were happy to stay with Mr. Ramaphosa. We were happy to work with him. We're not happy to work with anybody else. We're not going to do it. And we've seen the ANC asks its leaders to step down after a conference if the dynamics shift, if the balance of forces shift. So it's likely that that's the time that the Democratic Alliance will then say, okay, we're out of here. We can't work with this guy. And then they will jump straight into election mode, right? The day that President Ramaphosa gives that speech that he's stepping down, they will have a press conference and say, yeah, we've got to go. We've got to go. We can't work with Lamula, Mbalula, you name it. We can't work with them. That's what they'll say. Then the markets will twerk like Megan Thee Stallion on a trampoline at bounce, and we will be in full election mode, because you've seen how the markets can shake it like a salt shaker, but progressively downwards, right? That's what we're probably going to see. The calculation that is going to drive that, and why the DA would want really to put salt in the wound and to shake the table when they think the ANC is at its weakest. We've seen some of the polling that has come out. I have some reservations about some of this polling data, because it's coming out of entities that are funded by the Oppenheimers and also have relationships with the Democratic Alliance. The people doing these polls, Victory Research, have relationships with the Democratic Alliance. So they're saying that right now with President Ramaphosa, the ANC is polling at 30%. Without President Ramaphosa, he's polling at 20%. The ANC is polling at 20%. So when Mr. Ramaphosa is no longer within the leadership of the ANC, the DA may make the calculation that they will be able to start moving towards 30% or more if they then run a strategic calculation, split the ANC and split, all of the parties on the left, gain from traction on credibility on good governance, then form a coalition post the election with their moonshot alumni, that if they work it like that, play their cards right, that John Steenhuisen then will become the next president of South Africa. That's their calculation. I don't know if you think it'll work, but that seems to be their calculation. Whether the ball will fall that way remains to be seen. But they have no appetite at this particular moment to leave the GNU. I don't think they do. And I don't think that they will do that. Also, at a human level, blue lights are nice. Right now, I don't know how I would respond if I had a convoy, if I had security details, if I had people calling me a minister. I don't know. I like to think that I'll go Thomas Sankara, full humility, ride a bicycle all around Cape Town. Probably I'll do that. I love riding bicycles. And on campus, I used to be one of the guys who would cycle around campus. I like to think that. That is my self-esteem, self-belief, self-image, that I would be ethical. I would not get caught up in the luxury. But you know why everyone says about nice things that I could get used to this? Take people to such and such steam room, massage place, blah, blah, blah. Like, I could get used to this. I could get used to this. Take people to a bench press or to the squat machine. Nobody's like, I could get used to this. Because there is significant discomfort. We could all get used to luxury. But exercise, nobody's like, I could get used to this. No, sorry. We don't say that, right? We all have that innate desire for comfort over adversity. Even electrons pursue the path of least resistance. So John and others, they're also enjoying being ministers like every other minister. And, I'm not sure they're ready to go back to the benches. Take that salary cut, take that cut of convoy, lose your blue lights, lose your international flights. Blue lights, international flights, bright nights. Who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want that? That could be, at a very human level, one of the reasons why the Democratic Alliance doesn't want to leave. What do you think? Let's have a conversation. Don't forget, Book Lab, we're live. Members only book dissections out now. Join Book Lab now. Till the next one.